ZBrush is the industry-leading software package for digital sculpture and character creation. It is used in games, VR, animation, feature films, toy creation, 3D printing, and even manufacturing. It is best known for its powerful organic modeling workflow, but it also contains intuitive hard surface modeling tools, painting, detailing, and more. However, getting started in ZBrush can be a little daunting as it has so many options, tools, and different workflows. Hello, my name is Anna Carolina Pereira. I'm a 3D technical and character artist working in games and VR. I'm an educator and live streamer, and I have taught ZBrush and character creation to thousands of people worldwide. My goal for this Getting Started series is to break ZBrush down into small, bite-sized pieces that take away any doubt and insecurity you might have around watching videos and you exactly what you need to know. Nothing more, nothing else that inside of the model, only to realize that, whoops, which is the one with the big circle around it. So on the x-axis, and to access it, simply press X on your keyboard. Similarly, to turn it off, also press X. Here's my move brush without symmetry versus with. Symmetry helps you make great progress on your model in half the time. To access your symmetry options, go to Transform and right here in this tab, we see Activate Symmetry. This is also where you can turn it on and off. And you can even change the axis with which it's been symmetrical. Let me show you on a sphere. This is vertical, and let's see what Z does. Check the back. There it is. Here's a fun fact. You can actually turn on any combination of these at the same time. As you hover over your model, you're going to see your main cursor, which is the one with the big circle around it. The extra little squares are going to show you your symmetry. This is how I check to make sure that my symmetry is on. I just try to find those little squares. Radial symmetry allows you to do symmetry in a round pattern with as many different points of symmetry as you'd like. Let's turn that on by clicking this R button, and let's see what that does. Look at that. Changing the axis will change the axis that the radial symmetry is active in. Like so. Changing the radial count affects how many different cursor points you're going to get. The higher the number, the more cursor points. So let's see 4. That's what 4 looks like. Versus 53. You can get some very cool effects. Keep in mind that for the best effects, you're going to want your found. You'll notice animation and hit mirror. I would decide to be welded. This is what I would do. I would go to deformation and hit mirror. See these little XYZ buttons? This will decide in which direction you're mirroring. Hit that, and now it's just flipped it without welding down the middle. Back to geometry, mirror and weld. Back to geometry, mirror, mirror and welding down and ring. This was hit welded. This is what I would do. I would go to deformation
Mm.
And hit mirror. See these little XYZ buttons? This will decide in which direction you're mirroring. Hit that, and now it's just flipped it without welding down the middle. Back to geometry, mirror and weld, and there we have it, always from our left to our right. Most symmetry is calculated. From the center of the project. If you ever want to see the center, hit floor right here, and that will turn on the floor. And and it'll show you where the center is right there. If you ever want to move something away from the center and make it asymmetrical by nature by just having it in a different location, simply go to Transform, turn off Visible Symmetry Center, and turn on LSIM, Local Symmetry, instead. I'll use my gizmo to move it out of the way. And now I'm going to use my move brush and press X for symmetry to try using symmetry. That's the beauty of local symmetry. Here is the same example without local symmetry on. So I'm going to put it back, turn that off, turn this back on, move it, and here it is without local symmetry. Notice how the other side of the cursor is all the way floating somewhere. Okay, because it's using the center of the project still as my symmetry point. So that's everything you need to know about symmetry as you get started. To get started, everyone's probably their off, turn this back on. Let's take a moment to discuss how to get started with a new project in ZBrush. This is important because ZBrush can be a little different than other 3D softwares when it comes to starting up a project. I'm going to close the black box by pressing comma, and if I draw anything in the canvas, you can see that we are still in 2.5D mode, which I discussed in a different video. Control N to clear. Let's grab a simple primitive tool, Cube 3D. Nothing happens, even though I've selected the tool. You might be expecting the cube to automatically pop up in the middle of the world, but that will not be the case here in ZBrush. What you need to do is you need to click and drag on the cube for it to be drawn onto the scene. Don't worry, it will always be drawn in the center of the scene. However, if you click and drag multiple times, you'll create multiple instances of the tool in 2.5D. Let's clear the canvas and drag it in one time. In order to do anything to this cube, we must go to edit mode right up here. The shortcut is T. Only in edit mode will you be able to rotate around the cube or affect its shape in any way. However, if I try to use the move brush on my cube, you'll see this error. To enable sculpting, please convert this 3D primitive to a Polymesh 3D by pressing the Make Polymesh 3D button on the tool palette. You might be asking yourself, what's the difference? Well, this is a primitive and it hasn't been fully initialized into a sculptable mesh yet. Here's what makes it so cool though. While still in the primitive stage, you can come here to the tool palette and you can hit the initialize button. In the initialize button, let's turn on polyframe temporarily. You can change the sizes of your cube or whatever primitive you might be doing, how many sides there are in the first place, the divisions, and even the twist. This will make a brand new primitive for you that is perfectly customized to your needs. Let's look at the initialized properties of the 3D ring. You have S radius, which is the radius of the inner hole. We have coverage, scale 1, the twist. Ooh, that's a lot of twist right there. Again, we can do divisions and the IT twist. You still can't sculpt on this. Thankfully, they give us the exact instructions of what we need to do in order to make it sculptable. Here in the tool Tool palette, I'm going to make Polymesh 3D. Now, with my move brush, I can come in here and move it around. Once your primitive mesh has become a Polymesh 3D, you might notice it looks red. That's because normally the default material is this matchcap red wax right here. If you want to change the color or the material, simply click on that material and select a new one. I really like using basic material right here. This Make Polymesh 3D option is only really important if the thing you're working on currently is a primitive. I'm going to load up one of my previous tools to show the difference. Alright, my tool has been loaded up. I'm going to click and drag, hit edit, and now I can edit it without having to hit the Make Polymesh 3D button, because it's already a Polymesh 3D. If you load up a new project, however, let's go to Lightbox and choose a random project like this dog right here. Double click it.
Quickly.
No thanks. You'll notice that you can already start editing the dog without any extra steps. That's because the project, when it was saved, was already in edit mode and it already had everything set up for you. I hope this video was helpful. This is all you need to know in order to get your meshes ready for smoothing is an incredibly powerful feature within ZBrush that allows you to simplify and smooth down anything you've created in ZBrush. Any brush can be used with smoothing. To smooth, simply press and hold shift and you'll notice that your brush will change to a blue color. That's because now the smoothing brush is selected and you simply drag on your model and it will smooth it out. You can easily change the intensity of your smoothing by pressing down the spacebar button, which opens up those brush settings, and then before you change anything, hold down the shift button. You'll notice that the options change a little, but that's because now we are on the smoothing brush options. Right now, the smoothing brush is at 100% intensity. This is what that looks like. Very strong, gets rid of all those pores pretty well. And if I try to do it again, but this time turn it down to 11, you'll notice that it doesn't smooth everything down quite all the way. There are many smoothing brush options in ZBrush. In fact, you can find them with the other brush options.
options right here. So we have smoothing, smooth alternative, smooth cloth, smooth peaks, valleys, and we even have more smoothing options inside of the light box. Under brush, smooth. If you select any alternative smoothing brush, it will automatically replace the smoothing brush that pops up automatically when you press down shift. They all have different strengths, so I recommend trying them out. Here's something very special about ZBrush. When you are using subdivisions with your model, if you leave the subdivisions at a low subdivision, you can smooth away the big peaks and valleys that make your model's primary forms. But if you go up to a higher subdivision, you'll notice that your pores and small details are still safe. And the same can be said in inverse. Let me undo that. If I smooth at a high subdivision, all of my facial features, the nose, the curves are all safe and the The only thing that gets smoothed is the pores and details.
So make sure that you're using your subdivisions wisely while you are smoothing.
An incredibly important feature to know in ZBrush is masking. To start masking, all you do is press and hold Control on your keyboard and click and drag on your model, like this. You'll notice that we are painting it dark. But wait, we're actually not.
The darkness is just a visual representation of the areas that are masked or frozen.
What masking does is that it allows us to edit anything that is outside of the mask, but it protects the area that is masked.
I'm going to grab my standard brush.
And try drawing on my masked area. I simply cannot, no matter how hard I try.
But if I try to edit the area outside of the mask, you'll notice that it's completely editable.
You can even use mask very cool effects. For example, if I draw a little heart on here and I try to edit around it, maybe I'll get a very clean outline of the hearts. So we've talked about how to lay down a mask.
But what about doing anything to this mask?
First, we need to know how to invert the mask. All you have to do to invert the mask is press and hold Control on your keyboard and then click one time on the canvas or documents outside of your model. And that will invert the mask and allow you to just edit that part. To clear the mask, all you have to do is hold down Control and drag outside on your canvas, like so. There are a few more interesting things you can do to your mask, so let's put one down. And we can go to Masking in the Tool palette. You can sharpen your mask to make it simply sharper, or you can blur it by clicking the Blur button. The shortcut for blurring your mask is Control and click one time inside of your model. You can also grow your mask, boost it by making it darker, shrink it, and dilute it to make it softer. There are multiple types of masking brushes. The default masking brush is the mask pen that allows you to draw on your model the mask, and if you start masking from outside of your model, it creates a rectangular marquee for your mask, like that. If you press down Control and go to the brush options here, you'll find a ton other default masking brushes that are very interesting. For example, Mask Circle is an option and it creates a perfect circle. Mask Lasso, which is one of my favorites, that allows you to do a perfect lasso so that you get exactly the shape you want. Next, we have Selection. What Selection allows you to do is select a part of your model that will be shown while the rest is hidden, like so. This makes me on my mask area. I simply cannot, no matter how hard I try. By doing mask Control and drag outside on your canvas, like so. There are a few more interesting things you can do to your mask, so let's put one down. And we can go to Masking in the Tool palette. You can sharpen your mask to make it simply sharper, or you can blur it by clicking the Blur button. The shortcut for blurring your mask is Control and click one time inside of your model. You can also grow your mask. You can also grow your mask, boost it by making it darker, shrink it, and dilute it to make it softer. There are multiple types of masking brushes. brushes. The default masking brush is the mask pen that allows you to draw on your model the mask, and if you start masking from outside of your model, it creates a rectangular marquee for your mask, like that. If you press down Control and go to the brush options here, you'll find a ton other default masking brushes that are very interesting. For example, Mask Circle is an option and it creates a perfect circle. Mask Lasso, which is one of my favorites, that allows you to do a perfect lasso so that you get exactly the shape you want. Next, we have Selection. Next, exactly the shape perfect allows you Mask Lasso, which is one of my favorites, that allows you to do a perfect lasso so that you get exactly the shape you want. Next, we have Selection. What Selection allows you to do is select a part of your model that will be shown while the rest is hidden, like so. This makes your mesh a lot easier to work with, especially in difficult areas like armpits and just tight crevices. To create a selection, hold down Control and Shift on your keyboard and drag out to make a selection, like so. To invert your selection, simply press down Control and Shift on your keyboard and click on your model one time. To clear your selection, simply press Control and Control and click your selection, simply press down Control and Shift on your keyboard and click on your model one time. To clear your selection, simply press Control and Shift and click outside of the model onto your canvas. Just as with the masking brush, there are a lot of different brushes that you can select for your selection brush. Press down Control and Shift and go to the brush panel and you will see a ton of new ones being shown. For example, we have the Select Lasso, which allows you to select in a very precise manner. So if you just want to grab, for example, the ear so that you can work on it, so you can come in here and work on your selection. You can do multiple selections and you'll start refining it and making it smaller, like so. Here's a pro tip. If you're using one of the masking brushes, you might notice that it has a pass-through effect on your mesh. So if you try to select just the front, you'll also select the back. To avoid this, you can combine selection and masking. I'm going to select just the front of my model, like so, and then I'll mask the area I want. Clear my selection, and look at that. Nothing in the back has been selected.
nhiên hôm đó không nhìn lầm, trong số nhiều pháp tượng thế này, chỉ có La Hán kim thân này là vượt trội hơn cả. Võ miếu tẩy luyện. Đừng có phân tâm. Thanh niên này lẽ nào là do thi hư hóa thành? Chỉ có vào mà không có ra. Cái gọi là võ miếu tẩy luyện chính là kim thân còn sót lại sau khi âm thần của tu sĩ hóa thần tạ thế, đem một phần kim thân của bọn họ coi như bảo dược mà nuốt vào, chuyển hóa thành của mình. Đương nhiên, đó chỉ là một phần nhỏ bé. Hơn nữa chỉ lưu lại trong cơ thể khoảng một thời gian ngắn. Võ phu có tư chất thượng hạng có thể giữ lại khoảng 6 phần. Những người bình thường như ta, đại khái chỉ giữ được khoảng 4 đến 5 phần. Trời đất quá đội keo kiệt, tu hành cần phải dựa vào cướp đoạt. Để võ miếu tẩy luyện, chẳng qua cũng chỉ là thay đổi mục tiêu cướp đoạt từ yêu ma và báu vật trời đất sang các tu sĩ cảnh giới cao đã ngã xuống. Nội đan được ngưng tụ từ thôn thiên đan phệ này mới có thể chứa đựng yêu lực hung sát. Chẳng trách Giang Thu Lam lại giới thiệu môn võ học này cho mình. Mức tiêu hao hiện tại đã tương đương với 10 lần tẩy luyện bình thường rồi. Hắn tu luyện ngưng đan pháp gì vậy? Còn chưa tới ngưng đan viên mãn. Thôn thiên đan phệ là trấn ma đại tướng của châu nào? Chẳng lẽ lại là Thanh Châu? Sao lại có kẻ còn lợi hại hơn người lần trước? Ta nhớ cô nương đó cũng chỉ có thể giữ lại được 7 phần rưỡi. Ngưng đan viên mãn. Tiểu Hữu, ngươi hiện tại vừa mới đột phá, chính là trạng thái sung mãn nhất. Không cần bổ sung thêm, dẫu có tiếp tục tẩy luyện cũng chẳng có tác dụng gì. Làm phiền mấy vị giữ giúp ta, lần sau lại tới tẩy luyện. Nhanh vậy sao? Cảm thấy thế nào? Cũng được. Còn bao lâu nữa thì bảo cụ mới được phát xuống? Chắc là sắp rồi. Tối nay còn phải tới vương phủ dự tiệc, cũng không gấp gáp 1-2 ngày này. Ta không đi đâu. Thời gian không còn sớm nữa. Vậy ta tự đi vậy. Dù sao đều là người từ Thanh Châu tới, không thể để Giang đại nhân đi dự tiệc một mình. Cho đến khi Tưởng Thừa Vận quay người rời khỏi viện, hắn ngồi xuống bên bàn. Ngay lúc này, trong viện của Nhiên lại vang lên tiếng bước chân. Sưởi ấm một chút. Sao cô lại ở đây? Bởi vì ta đột nhiên thấy không cần thiết nữa. Cái gì không cần thiết? Thanh Châu đã có ta, thì cần gì phải mượn tay người khác. Lưu anh em thì không sao, nhưng đừng tự lừa dối chính mình. Nếu quả thật có đủ sự tự tin ngạo nghệ coi thường tất cả như vậy, sao cô lại có thể khoác lên bộ váy dài này? Nó sắp đột phá rồi. Ta có chút sốt ruột. Cô nương không cần người khác đáp lại, chỉ là muốn tìm một người để tâm sự. Và chàng thanh niên cũng quen với sự tĩnh lặng như nàng, chắc chắn là người thích hợp nhất. Nhưng khi ta khoác lên bộ y phục này, những năm tháng tu hành này dường như đã trở thành một trò đùa. Ta sẽ giết chết nó. Cảm ơn. Đừng khách sáo. Giờ có đặt một cái cọc gỗ ở đây thì hiệu quả cũng vẫn thế thôi. Không giống. Thiên phủ vốn luôn là niềm tự hào của nàng. Lần đầu tiên nếm trải cảm giác bị người khác nghiền nát, nàng thực sự đã chịu chút đả kích.